Hello, everyone. How are you doing? This is Daryl Guberman, the CEO of Guberman PMC LLC, a quality consulting firm here in Connecticut. We've been open going on 13 years as of August of 2024, and today this video is about Boeing 2002 supplier notification shrank quality oversight and handed it over to Underwriters ANSI-ANAB. QA expert Daryl Guberman illustrates Boeing Underwriters' failure along with Boeing himself. Mr. David Calhoun, he's been on board there since 2009. He also was on the appropriation board for Mr. Dennis Muhlenberg. If they needed a raise, he was part of the team that gave them a raise. You'll see on Boeing's board of directors that it's kind of a sticky situation there. But this video today is about Boeing, and we're going to show you that they gave up inspection in 2002 and left it up to their ANSI-ANAB accredited suppliers, which we find out are not that good, as you can see with the quality failure. On top of it, the American National Standards Institute and the American National Crediting Board are underwriters for the International Accreditation Forum Incorporated in Delaware, and also the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation in Australia. We have acronyms for that. IAF stands for It Always Fails. ILAC stands for Is Laboratory Accreditation Credible? And you will see throughout my videos that it is absolutely disgusting. The problem is that you have the American National Standards Institute and the American National Crediting Board. ANSI is a 100-plus-year-old company, standard organization. Now they can accredit, they can do all kinds of mess. But anyway, they have federal agencies and corporations on board. You have ANAB that sits right over by ANSI. Okay, ANAB sits right on ANSI's board, right over by Boeing, right over by other organizations, Lockheed, etc., Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, that utilize the ANAB accreditation. You find anything wrong with any oversight? And they talk about oversight. Confidence in the integrity and confidence in the integrity of quality. Is there any integrity? No, we'll continue on. In 2018, ANSI took over complete control over ANAB. Okay, and they're in it. I see articles out there, the difference between ANSI and ANAB. There is none. The only thing is that you have the CEO of ANSI, Joe Batia. Well, I'll tell you his 2015 salary because it is absolutely abominable. But he's kissing a lot of tuchus. And for those people who are not of the Yiddish persuasion, that means kissing a lot of ass. Let me just tell you this. Joe Batia in 2015, I have all of it, but this is the best of the best. He was getting $1.6 million base pay, $700,000 wherever bonus, a $74,000 wherever he wants to put in a 401k, and a $35,000 non-taxable bonus. Okay, on top of it, and here we go. ANSI and ANAB sat on the IAF between 2015 and 21. They still do. But between 2015 and 2021, the IAF was handed over to this communist Chinese national, Zhao Jinwu, who at the time was also the chief executive, or actually the chief executive of China National Accreditation Services in Beijing, China. I'm not going into the litany of their backgrounds like I've done in many videos, but just mind you, he was standing in the Wuhan lab in 2017, handing them a laboratory accreditation where you had that same year in Texas, a Miss Pamela Sale, the vice president of accreditation for laboratories, say between one laboratory and another, there are variances and they lack protocols, which means they definitely released the virus from that laboratory. Also, ANSI and ANAB are underwriters for the IAF, incorporated in Delaware, the International Accreditation Forum, incorporated in Delaware, and also ILAC, the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation in Australia. The sad part is sitting on an American company, and I don't say this about the people of Iran or Pakistan. You have the factor that Iran and Pakistan sit right over by ANSI and ANAB, okay? When you hear about government sanctions, presidential sanctions, my feeling is because of the IAF, they can still do business with other companies and countries. I think it's some illegal activity going on, but who knows? Who knows? But anyway, they are equivalent in accreditation to ANAB, ANSI-ANAB. And remember this, ANSI and ANAB are underwriters for the IAF and ILAC. On top of it, on Boeing's portal, supplier portal, it states, and I quote, A third-party auditor must be a registrar or accreditation, but whatever. A third-party register must be ANSI-ANAB accredited or internationally equivalent. Well, these are internationally equivalents. Iran and Pakistan. You have something strange going on, huh? On top of it, you have the factor of 7 different registrars who are accredited by ANAB, okay, that sit over by a lot of the companies, corporations, and federal agencies that they certify. For example, Intertek sits, or actually certifies through ANAB, certifies Spirit Aerospace Systems. Isn't that great? You have BSI, who sits not only on ANSI's board, but also on ANAB's board that can grant, suspend, and withdraw certification, just like their counterpart, Boeing. Also, the IAQG, the International Aerospace Quality Group, that Boeing is very much immersed in, also sits on ANSI's board, right over by Boeing, no less. So you have all these registration bodies who are sitting on ANSI's board. You have the Federal Aviation Administration. You have, of course, Boeing. And you also have the factor that Boeing failed. They fudged documentation. Also, their counterpart, Kobe Steel. And the IAF, the International Accreditation Forum, is a repository for both national and international accreditation bodies. So anybody who is on the IAF, who certifies companies, okay, who accredits companies, ANSI-ANAB takes full legal responsibility because they are underwriters. Let me just tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, before I read you Boeing's Bulletin for 2002. Boeing fudged documentation. Most recently, they've been caught from 2007 to 2018 not writing down requirements of heat and pressures for their autoclave that does the V22 off-spray composite components. I'm a composites guy. And I know when I was on board in the aerospace industry, we took measurements, we verified cure cycles from the beginning, middle, and end, and re-verified. When the auditor came in from, let's say, the government, they would look at cure cycles for different types of composite parts that we manufacture. Boeing did not do that. Another fudging documentation for not 1 year, but 11 years they did that. And you most recently had a V22 crash. If you have interstitial bubbles between the fabric, you're going to have, well, basically composites are layers of material, whether it's fiberglass or boron or graphite, with a resin on it. And you have to put it under a certain time and temperature and pressure to make that uniformed in a one unit, meaning it becomes a solid piece. If you have interstitial bubbles because not enough pressure, not enough heat, what happens is vibratory stresses will cause it to separate, debond, and fracture, and you have a fatality depending on where the part is. You then go to Lockheed Martin, who also sits on ANSI's board, and there was a recent article that stated, you can look it up, after their 801st ship, they're still producing it with defects. And then you have the factor of Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer, who also sit on ANSI's board, right over by the FDA, USDA, NIH, CDC, etc. And they skip quality processes and standards. They have batch issues. In fact, they had a 75 million recall because of contamination and quality issues. You have, and here it is, Johnson & Johnson sits there. You have Pfizer, okay? Pfizer, whose CEO, Albert Bourla, certified veterinarian, says in an interview with Meg Terrell on CNBC, okay, he said, Meg, I'm a 59-year-old man. I don't need to take it. And it was made in the sun. Made in the sun. Yes, it was made in the sun. There's no problem. Quality is job one. When you hear that bullshit, quality is not job one. And here it is. So we're done right now. We're going to now read you the bulletin from 2002 that Boeing basically said, if you're ANSI-ANAB accredited, you can hand in your parts. We just check it off. And here it goes. An on-site Boeing survey, they say survey, but it's actually audit. An on-site Boeing audit of supplier quality systems if need be. Well, hold on a sec. On their supplier survey or portal, it says must be ANSI-ANAB or international equivalent. Boeing sits on ANSI-ANAB's board. They sit on the board of ANAB that can grant, suspend, and withdraw certification. Also, the board of directors that have input in how to function. Is there something wrong with that? So they basically gave up their authority to a piece of paper rather than have their source inspectors go out and look at parts. And here we go. Our preference is to deal with proven suppliers with excellent quality performance and not have to do on-site quality system audits. So for 22 years, Boeing has been doing that. No one has said anything different. They will probably come up with a story. Daryl, that was wrong. That's it. They also had layoffs of QC because QC is an added expense that most of these people don't want. Really, they talk about it. We're quality. But in essence, I'll give you a for instance. I went back to an aerospace company, got interviewed for a management position in 2008. When I worked at this company, they had over 1,000 inspectors. The director, the quality director, said to me in 2008, he said, Daryl, he said, when you were here, we had over 1,000 people. But the vice president of quality downsized doing cost-cutting initiatives. And right now we have a rec for 600 people in quality because right now there's 380 quality people on board. You can't make this up. How am I coming out with these numbers? Do you think I'm pulling them out of my ass? I'm not. I don't even know why he said it, but I knew the process specs, I knew the bond controls, I knew everything that I had to do for my job and in the performance of that job. I'm sure you see that with the information that I have. There's no screwing around when it comes to people's lives. So they said that the vice president of quality downsized so much that in 2001 when he retired, he got a $750,000 bonus for that. Isn't that a tender moment? So, you see Boeing handing over more responsibility for the ANSI-ANAB accreditation. You see that Boeing sits on ANSI-ANAB's board. You see that they sit on the board that can grant, suspend, and withdraw certification. You have David Calhoun say say in an interview, we have to go with our regulator. And you find out that the FAA gave regulatory authority to Boeing. So Boeing and the FAA were equivalent in regulatory authority. You see this? This is what the IAF stands for. It always fails. My telephone number is 203-556-1493. And remember this, ladies and gentlemen, from Confucius, it is not the droplet of water that wears away the mighty stone, David, but it is Daryl Guberman's persistence. And their quality is fucked. By the way, that term was handed over to me in 2019 from the American National Standards Institute. That's for another video. It'll be down below. All information, pertinent information to this item is down below the video. And I thank you.